feature presentation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 108th draft. I'm going back to draft, baby, of the Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Episodes, drafts,
I like the
minis,
draft. You know,
parts,
we went to episodes after 100,
segments.
but, you know, whatever you want to call it, we're here. Eric, happy Monday. Happy Spider Monday.
Bonesaw's ready?
Critics' Choice nominees just came out, which will be our big topic of the show today. We both voted on, or I guess like not really necessarily voted, but I guess submitted our nominees to see how that would flesh out, which we're going to go through every category in a little bit. But how you doing this Monday?
Well, I'm good. I mean, I talked about it last week.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll just be quick. I had to go to a funeral for my 16-year-old stepnephew, Dylan, who died of an accidental drug overdose, which is as bad as you would expect it to be, and even worse when you're there.
I'm so sorry, man.
Thank you very much. I think the hardest thing for me was seeing my dad get emotional because he's not an emotional type of person. So I'm still working through that, and that's going to take a very long time just in terms of like what I was processing and what have you. And just very grateful for anybody that, again, you know, sent any condolences and things like that and reached out. So thank you for that. So I we can't talk about it now, but something that, you know, it'll sound silly, but something that kind of actually helped me a little bit the other day, just in terms of like take my mind off of things, was watching season 4 of Cobra Kai, which I burnt through the whole thing. So
yeah, that is probably a cathartic kind of thing to get your mind off stuff, which we will have a review for on the 27th of December, which you guys can check out. But I'm glad you got to catch that on the weekend. But yeah, it's a big week this week. We have a lot of stuff coming out in the next couple weeks. So we'll be going over Critics' Choice nominations. We'll be talking about what else we've been watching. But I know maybe it's just we've been playing so much catch up when it comes to Critics' Choice and end of year stuff. So that'll probably be the majority of it. But we'll just shoot the shit and talk about Critics' Choice and other things. But we have tons of reviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you should keep your eye out for Don't Look Up and Benedetta, which should be out very, very soon when you're listening to this, or they might already be up right now. We'll have reviews for Spider-Man No Way Home, which should be dropping Tuesday the 14th, either middle of the night or very early tomorrow morning, depending on when you're listening to this. It might already be up, so go check that out.
Bonesaw's ready.
I'm ready, dude. I'm ready. We're seeing it tonight, which I think I can say. But we'll have reviews for The Kingsman, which I did see. Review embargo is also tomorrow, I think. So we'll have a review soon, depending on when. Eric, did you watch it yet?
Yeah, I watched it last night.
Okay, cool. So we'll have a review for that soon. The Lost Daughter, Nightmare Alley, Red Rockets, all coming very, very soon. Then Being the Ricardos, Licorice Pizza, Tragedy of Macbeth, The Matrix Resurrections, The Tender Bar, Cyrano, or Cyrano. Serrano's a pepper. And then
Serrano de Bergerac.
And then our first review of the new year will be the 355. Or the 355. And then Scream is shortly after that. So you got tons of stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll be heading to LA for the Critics' Choice Awards and a little vacay with Nevis for a week. So Scream, the review there might be the week after when I come back, but we'll see. Depending on, I doubt they'll screen it super early, but that's your schedule for the next couple of weeks. And we'll probably take a little bit of time off over the holidays, but some of these reviews we might record early and then they'll kind of come out as over the holiday break and things like that. So Eric, you mentioned Cobra Kai, which we can't talk about yet. I wish we could.
Yeah.
Watching anything else, or do you want to go really like into Critics' Choice nominees right away?
I think we should go into Critics' Choice nominees because I'm sure maybe a couple of them will be films that we either caught up with or we want to kind of maybe bring up again in terms of where they stand even for our best of list, which I'm sure we'll do at the at the end of the year into the new year and things like that. So, without further ado, Matt and I are both Critics' Choice members, and we both voted this year, and in each category we are given up to 3 nominees to choose, whoever we wish, and then in Best Picture we get up to 5, and it's preferential ballot, so meaning the number one is the one that's given the most points, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So exciting for me. First time voting, first year in the Critics' Choice Association. So um, it's fun to kind of cram. There was that one week where we had like 6 screenings in 4 days and things like that. Then you have a pile of screeners at home that you're watching, and then we talked a little bit last week of the strategy of putting your, like you said, the preferential ballot of 1 to 5 for Best Picture and then 1 to 3 for all the other categories. And then the strategy there of, and I struggled with this when I was putting my nominees together, because I was like, do you vote with your heart and put in a movie that based on trends, how other people perceive them, like critics, groups, critics, just the reviews in general on the Critics' Choice Association weekly? They have, you know, the scores out of 100 from the critics in the association. So you kind of can go by, what actually has a shot and what is what I think is some of the best stuff of the year that, I want to vote for, but I don't know if I'm wasting it because I don't know if everyone else will vote for it. So I think that was my thought process. And ultimately I met somewhere in the middle where I was like, you know what, I'm going to mostly vote for stuff that I really liked that I think has a shot of making it, but might be on the cusp, or the stuff that I just flat out loved that everyone else loved as well. But then I had to put in a few that I was just like, you know what, I'm going to put it in there. It's probably not going to happen, but I need to give it a shot, because what if I'm wrong? What if I was the person who didn't? There was an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm the other day where Larry leaves the line voting, and then the guy wins by or loses by 1 vote, and it's Larry David's fault for not voting. Because he leaves the line because it was too long, and anyways, Curb's great. I was like, I gotta vote for something like The Humans for Best Picture, because personally, I thought it was one of the best films of the year. I absolutely loved it. I assumed it had no shot of making it in. So I'm like, do I waste my vote on it? But I'm like, what if there's enough people that, maybe we can be a little bit different. Maybe The Humans will make it in. So I had to put The Humans at number 1, because I was just like, you know what, I'll give it the most chance I possibly could. And then I'll put in some other stuff that I think might be on the cusp. That being said, that's how I voted. And I think you're in like a kind of similar boat, right? Like you throw in picks that you're like, I have to put these in there to give them a shot. And then you kind of put your rest, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're a part of the Human League, which is a good thing. You're only human. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you have to look at it. You mentioned, are you thinking with your heart or your head, and are you thinking strategically, or do you want to kind of go with what you're picking, like, as your favorite films of the year? And it's one of those kind of situations where balance does play a role, and compromise as well when you're thinking strategically, because you got to look at, like, okay, the awards body that we're a part of is a very big awards body. It represents not only film critics, but also TV personality type, entertainment journalists, things like that. So you're not going to get a microcosm or a consensus of something that is like, okay, this one movie is really going to shine here, where it might not get Oscar nominations, but it's good to see that it gets nominations by the critics, because otherwise it wouldn't be represented at all. And there's
usually the city groups get those, right? Because
exactly.
It's a smaller group of people. They kind of go, let's be the champion of this one movie. A small group of Toronto Film Critics Association, Boston Film Critics Association, those kind of things. Yeah,
exactly. And when you're looking at it like that, like, for me, like, I voted, and I knew it wasn't going to get nominated, but I couldn't not vote for it, and that was Bergman Island.
Yeah.
And I also really love The Green Knight and things like that. So when you're voting, you're kind
Malignant.
of yes. We'll get into that as well. Malignant is great, and I voted.
Didn't
for,
show up anywhere, unfortunately.
VFX, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, when you're voting, it's such a weird thing to do, because everything feels so predetermined already. Like by the time we get to this moment in award season, it's already kind of tainted in a way where like
the Globes were today as
the
well.
front. Yeah, but who cares about that?
Yeah,
And
I
we're not
agree.
Globe members, and
No.
we're not going to talk about them because
I
you know
know.
we'll
I'm just
reference
saying, like,
Denis
yeah.
Villeneuve in terms of the pronunciation, but other than that, yeah, I think one of the biggest sort of problems here is that you know you're trying to vote by what you believe is the best, but at the same time there's this preconceived notion of like, okay, these are the films that are going to get nominated for best picture for the Oscars, and a lot of the times these bigger awards bodies want to match up with the Oscars because they want to be statistical,
Yeah.
right? They want to be like the next year they'll be like, oh, last year our films that were nominated for
We're a
best picture.
precursor, yeah.
Exactly, when they're really not, because you know for the most part they nominate 10, but you look in like all the other categories, there's like 6 names per category, and it's
Yeah.
almost like, oh, of course they're going to match up because they're all there. All the
Quantity,
names
yeah.
are there, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that can, we can be Olivia Newton-John here and let's be critical. But yeah, it's one of those situations where you're not going to get what you want. You have to think strategically, and to your point, like, what is something that is on the cusp that has a shot that might benefit from a vote,
Mhm.
and I think
And there's one that we believe we actually might have helped with, and then everything. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Nicolas Cage and Pig. The rest we can go through and just kind of talk about maybe what we wanted or what we voted for, or maybe not. We'll go through, but
I think we should. There's one category we should talk about, and that's best supporting actor, because I
yeah.
want to be on the record that I did not vote for Jared Leto.
Yeah, neither did I. But I will go. You can listen to our review. And I think you're sort of in the same boat where I'm like, he feels like he's in a completely different movie as everyone, but I actually kind of thought he was having fun, and I had fun with his performance.
It's
Do I think
me,
it's
Paulo.
yeah? If I think, do I think it's awards worthy? No, but hey. So I will say, just to kick everything off, like the award ceremony is January 9th at the Fairmont Century Plaza Hotel in Los Angeles. It's airing on the CW network and TBS this year. So that's exciting. And then the kind of line of everything: Belfast, West Side Story are leading with 11 nominations, and Dune and Power of the Dog close up with 10 nominations each. Eric, let's just go through it all, and then we can kind of talk about each category. So, oh god, these are the television ones.
I've got Best Picture up right now. I can read through them if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
So for Best Picture, we have Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, Tick, Tick, Boom, and West Side Story.
How do you feel overall? I think those are kind of mostly what we expected to get in there. Like you said, like these are the movies that are kind of showing up everywhere.
Yeah, I would say the one film that probably won't repeat at the Oscars will be Tick, Tick, Boom for Best Picture. I think Tick, Tick, Boom is going to be one of those movies that gets one nomination, and that's going to
Just
be
for Garfield?
For Andrew Garfield. Not that it's not a good movie, and you can listen to our review of the film. It's a really wonderful movie, but
I voted for it.
well, no, and that is great, and that's maybe another film that kind of benefited from your vote, is that it made it into the 10. But I musicals are one of those things where it's like
they're gonna give it to West Side Story.
Yeah, there can only be one, know,
Yeah.
and like even something like In the Heights, which I know you weren't as big on as I have kind of grown to love it a little bit more. But even that, like at the beginning of this year, like you think like how that was kind of perceived as like this Oscar film, and now nobody's even talking about it, and it shows up nowhere, right? So, and the critics really liked it. So, Tick, Tick, Boom and West Side Story both being there is kind of interesting. And even Coda has musical elements.
Yeah. And Coda, I'm glad made it in too, because I was a little worried based on it coming out earlier in the year, Apple feeling like they weren't really putting much behind it. Like it kind of just came and went on their service. And even in this award season, like I haven't just a little inside baseball, like we didn't receive any please vote for Coda like stuff for a screener or anything. Like Apple wasn't really pushing it at all, it felt like. So I'm kind of glad to see it show up in a few places, and that's a movie that I loved at Sundance and I've continued to love throughout the years. So I'm glad to see it kind of popping up in places. But like everything else, you know, you guys can check out our reviews for most of this stuff, and we'll have reviews for Licorice Pizza and have we reviewed Nightmare Alley yet? We haven't.
No,
Right?
that's
No.
on the
Okay.
list of films to review.
Like, it's such a blur of like what we have done and what we haven't, but I've come to enjoy West Side Story even more. I voted for it in a lot of places. I love Tick Tick Boom and Coda. I think we're both kind of medium on Belfast, but assumed that it would show up in most places, and I'm not against that. Don't Look Up, we haven't reviewed yet, but you guys can, it will be up by the time you're listening to this. I liked it a little bit more than Eric, but not surprised that it's popping up in places. Dune, infamously, you guys know our opinion on Dune. I didn't vote for it anywhere, or maybe special effects. I think I voted for it. But even
Denny
then,
Villeneuve is doing really well.
I love that. And I love that tweet got no likes because no one knows what I'm talking about.
I liked
but
it.
Like, I know you did. I don't mean to, I know you're going to like it though.
I support you.
I know you do, and vice versa. But I mean, like, I knew you would understand that tweet, but
Yeah.
no one else does.
It's a niche tweet, but it's a good one. It's a very good one.
Yeah, and I think again, the films we were medium on, but we knew that they'd be like awards players were Belfast, King Richard, Nightmare Alley. So I'm surprised Nightmare Alley showed up in as many spots as it did, but I know that there are people who really, really like that movie. But
and it's also a crafts film. Like,
yeah,
a lot of, when it comes to guilds and critics groups and things like that, you'll probably see it pop up a lot in places like production design and cinematography and hair and makeup and things like
which
that.
I don't disagree with any of that.
No, I don't either. I just was kind of lukewarm on the movie, as were you. And to your point, going back to Coda, I gotta say that, it's a testament to the film itself, because it wasn't getting the support it needed really from Apple. They're starting to now, where they're doing screenings, and
because they start to see that people are voting for it.
Yeah, because like in New York and LA, they've been doing sort of like special screenings and critics group stuff and all that. But like throughout the year, even when it was released, there wasn't a big lead up to the release of the film. But the person that's actually benefiting the most from Coda is Troy Kutzer.
Yeah, he's showing up in a lot of places, which is really, really cool. And yeah, that's an interesting strategy when you think behind the scenes of everything in award season. And now that I've gotten a little taste of it, of the, my security guards at my building getting 11 packages per day for me. I think it's fascinating of like how they try to, go, hey, reminder, we had this movie this year. We would love for you to vote for it or watch it. The strategy of maybe reverse for Apple being like, well, we'll just wait and see what one of our movies get nominated, and then we might put our full force into it. Now that they see Coda show up in places, maybe now is the time to be like, okay, now we're going to try to convince people for it to win instead of it just getting a nomination. So,
and even The Tragedy of Macbeth, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was a movie that they really weren't doing, other than the New York Film Festival, they weren't doing a lot of press for it up until last week, where we saw it at this IMAX event, Shakespeare on Sunday screening, right? So like, even with that, like, Denzel made it in, but I feel like if they had kind of like really
pushed it,
championed it earlier, it might have been showing up in some of the tech categories or things like that, or even for Catherine Hunter, who's kind of amazing.
She's great
in a small role as the Weird Sisters.
Yeah. Moving on to Best Actor. Here's one where Eric already mentioned it that I think we did help because we both had him very high, was Nicolas Cage in Pig. That's fantastic. I'm so glad that we had him in there, because I was worried that he wasn't going to show up anywhere for that performance. So love that. Cumberbatch in Power of the Dog, Dinklage in Cyrano.
Cyrano.
I know. Garfield in Tick Tick Boom, Will Smith in King Richard, and Denzel in Tragedy of Macbeth. I think only, I voted for Cage and Garfield. I forget who I had at 3. Oh, Simon Rex, who I wanted to get in there so badly. And I tried. I put him at number 1.
I put him at 2.
Tried. I tried my damnedest, but it did not work. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. I mean, I'm not too hot on Will Smith or Denzel but I thought they're both fine. But I think Will Smith is a little cartoony in King Richard. I thought Denzel's great, but it is just the Shakespearean dialogue. I'm like, all right, I don't know. I guess it's good. But
they'll quote you on the poster.
Yeah.
I guess it's good. Matt Rohrbeck.
But this is a pretty solid group.
I mean, like actors themselves, this is a very accomplished group altogether. But to your point, I think Simon Rex, and we'll talk, you'll hear it in our review, gives one of the trickiest performances of the year and also one of the best performances. And it kind of feels like something that we'll look back on, from years to come and be like, why didn't we nominate people like Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems, or Charlize Theron for Young Adult, or Simon Rex for for Red Rocket? Like, all of these performances, while prickly and caustic in nature and very unlikable, are so compelling, and it's like a second skin. Like the way that Simon Rex is able to inhabit Mikey Saber is nothing short of, like, it reminded me a little bit of like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky, where like I wonder what Rex's career outside of Red Rocket will be, but as that
moving forward,
as Mikey Saber,
he's just perfect. Yeah,
it's an amazing performance.
Yeah, absolutely agree. In actress, we have Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter, Lady Gaga for House of Gucci, Alana Haim for Licorice Pizza, Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart for Spencer. I will say that Chastain, Gaga, and Kidman are the ones where I'm like, guys, like, it just seems so obvious when people vote for those, where it's just like, it goes back to the point where we had that great conversation. You're like, Matt, a lot of the times it's just the most, whether it's the most makeup, the most accent, the most whatever. It's
the
just
biggest
like,
performance.
The biggest performance, the most transformative is a thing that people really love, or the best impersonation, or whatever. And those three performances I don't like, really. Like, I think
I'd say Jessica Chastain is the best of those, and I think that if the movie was better, in the same way that if House of Gucci was a better film, it might have been something that worked. But I think overall, it's like, that's the other thing as well. If you're playing, you mentioned impersonation, if you're playing somebody who's real and who's larger than life, it's same thing with Will Smith and King Richard.
Yeah.
You're going to attract people. Like, I remember Michael Keaton doing interviews after Bergman, after losing to Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything, was like, he talked to Oscar voters and other members, and like, Michael, you gave one of the best performances of the year, but you didn't play a real person, so I can't vote for
I know
you.
it's ridiculous, but and I agree with you that Chastain, I don't think that movie's very good.
No.
And just like, it's I don't know. But Coleman is obviously dynamite in Lost Daughter. I'm so glad to see Alana Haim get in there, because I voted for her as well, which I believe you did as well.
Yes, she was my number one, and Coleman was my number two.
Yeah,
Coleman, I keep thinking about her performance as well.
Yeah,
like,
same.
It's so subtle, but it's surgical in how she interacts with people, and sort of how the character is able to carry herself through this journey. And again, we'll talk about it more in the review. But it's just nice to see a subtle performance get in. Like you mentioned, all the big performances. And Coleman obviously has been lauded quite well in the last few years. And we've seen, I mean, she's amazing in The Favorite, but that is a bigger performance.
That's a showier performance. Yeah, for sure.
But a very good, earned, showy performance.
I agree. Yeah.
And then The Father as well. She's amazing in that movie, but she's always been good. And seeing somebody get nominated for nuance is just,
great.
Yeah, it's delightful, and it's a great movie, and we'll talk about it more. I'm trying to think who else I voted for, but
I have mine up here. I had Amelia Jones in Coda, which I thought she wouldn't get in, because she'd probably get into the young person category, which I think she did. We'll get there, but
hold on, I'm looking at the texts I sent you.
Yeah,
no, not the boy band Quentin Tarantino thing. Okay,
not.
Here.
Tessa.
I voted for Tessa Thompson for Passing, and that's a movie that showed up nowhere.
Yeah,
and that I think does say something as well.
Sure, yeah.
So Rebecca Hall, I mean, that movie has been doing quite well with critics groups in smaller regions.
Yep.
But Tessa Thompson's performance, I thought, would be one of those that would make it in, that would benefit from, like a couple extra votes. And it's a really subtle performance. So I understand why people maybe wouldn't be like,
forgot about it, or just like
be their number one.
Yeah, I feel that. And then obviously Kristen Stewart for Spencer, again, playing a real person, a great impersonation. I like her more than you did, but I think it's pretty obvious that she made it in.
Yeah, it's a better movie too. I think it's a better movie than being the Ricardos and the
Agreed,
Eyes of Tammy Faye and House of Gucci.
Yeah. For supporting actor, my dude Jamie Dornan, God love him. I wish he got in for Barb and Star as well, but he got in for Belfast. Kieran Hines for Belfast, Troy Kotsur for Coda, Jared Leto for House of Gucci, J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, and Cody Smith McPhee. So 2 out of 3 of my picks made it in, which were the ones that, I mean, Troy Kotsur, like you said, he's a pleasant surprise to see show up in some of these categories. I had him in my top 3. I also had Cody Smith McPhee, who I think is excellent. I had Richard Jenkins in this category. I thought he might have had a shot, but obviously he did not. So
okay, what I want you to do right now, Matt, is read your 3 that you voted for verbatim.
Richard Jenkins, The Humans, Cody Smith McPhee, Power of the Dog, and Troy Kotsur for Coda.
Okay, so there is no trace of Jared Leto in those 3. Okay, good.
No. And I will defend Jared Leto in that movie a little bit, even though I do not like him. I think he is enjoyable in that movie. Do I think it's one of the best performances of the year? No.
Okay, fair. But you still didn't vote for him.
No.
Okay, this is what I want on the record, and I'm going to read mine. So, best supporting actor, name, and film: Vincent Lindon for T10, Cody Smith McPhee, The Power of the Dog, and Coleman Domingo for Zola.
Yeah. I like
no
that
traces of Jared
you tried your hardest for Coleman Domingo, and
I love the guy. I like, after If Beale Street Could Talk, I'm a fan.
Oh, he's great. No, he's phenomenal in that movie. And who was your number 1 again?
Vincent.
Oh, yeah, Vincent Linden. Yeah, which, unfortunately,
but that's a performance that, like, even though that movie is so divisive, I feel like that, like, even if you don't,
everyone
like
can
the
agree
film,
that he's good in it.
He's so good in that movie.
Yeah. Yep. No one Leto from either of us. So on the record.
Leto my ego.
Best supporting actress, Katarina Balfe for Belfast, Adriana DeBose for West Side Story, Ann Dowd for Mass, Kirsten Dunst for Power of the Dog, Anjanae Ellis for King Richard, Rita Morano for West Side Story. I will say only one of my picks made it in here. I voted for Ariana DeBose for West Side Story. I had Jessie Buckley and Marlee Matlin in here. Again, I really tried to put a lot of my weight behind Coda because I really loved it. And I thought it was one of those movies that was on the cusp in each one of these categories. So I tried to kind of include it in a lot. And I also had The Lost Daughter in a lot of categories because I felt like it was also on the cusp. And I feel like it had the opposite problem of maybe coming out a bit too late where not enough people either watched it or maybe it's too subtle of a movie or small of a movie. But I thought Jessie Buckley was dynamite in that movie and Marlee Matlin as well. So, but I like this group of actresses there.
Yeah. And I mean, Marlee Matlin also won an Oscar for her first film for Children of a Lesser God. So like, she is a known actor, where Troy Kotsur is somebody who's kind of known as mostly as a stage actor, and he's like Paul Raci. Paul Raci and him are buddies, and so you could almost see the same trajectory for Troy Kotsur here, where like he kind of continues to build that momentum, and it's a very good performance. And so same thing though with Marlee Matlin, like she's very good in that role, and you could create this narrative comeback in a way where it's like she hasn't been nominated since, well, she won in '86, and that was the one film that she won for,
right?
So so there is that narrative there, but it is interesting that the person that is benefiting the most is Troy Kotsur. I agree with you. Jessie Buckley, in my opinion, gave the best supporting actress performance of the year, and just one of the best performances, period. And I think that she is, without a doubt, one of the best actors working right now. Everything that she does is very interesting, weird, and outside the box. And especially when it's a role that you have somebody else who is just as iconic or, you know, memorable in their portrayal of the same person, and you're cutting back and forth, and it's sort of within the subconscious mind. uh, she's able to create a character that, you know, obviously doesn't look like Olivia Colman to any degree, but does have, you know, shared attributes
Oh,
and
totally. Yeah.
mannerisms and things like that,
It's
and
a shared performance, but they're both incredible.
they
Yeah.
complement each other
And give it their
perfectly.
own, yeah, like they both feel unique while being the same person, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
then my other two, I like, you know what, like, I honestly actually thought Ruth Negga would show up in supporting actress for Passing, because again, it's a very subtle performance, but it's the one that has, it's it has more kind of oomph than Tessa Thompson in Passing, and it's quite memorable, especially in the third act of the film. And I think that again, that the way that she's able to navigate two worlds and sort of play a character that has sort of interesting caveats to who she is as a person,
mhm.
I think is really great. The one, again, we're talking like Buckley kind of being in flashbacks and giving this amazing performance. The other person that I really loved that I also voted for was Mia Vashikowska for Bergman's Island, and Bergman Island.
Yeah.
And what I really loved about that performance as well is that performance doesn't come in until almost like an hour into the movie, and the way that it's constructed within the meta narrative could have taken away from the performance, because you're so kind of fixated on what Mia Hansen Love is doing with the structure of the story, that it kind of maybe loses, like, oh, I'm not really paying attention to the acting per se. But
Mhm.
what she is able to do in terms of creating a sense of what the Vicky Creeps character is feeling in real life, and projecting that onto the page and projecting that into the film that we're being shown, is nothing short of just a brilliant performance. And again, it's just a shame that it's a smaller movie. It's being released by IFC Films. I knew it wasn't going to do well, but it would be nice to see her show up in some critic groups as
Yeah, and
well.
you have to kind of put your weight behind those kind of movies too, right? When you think it might have a chance, if there's enough people who feel the same way as you. But yeah, I mean, Ann Dowd getting in for Mass makes sense for me if Mass was going to show up anywhere. Um, and everyone else makes sense here. We didn't talk about like J.K. Simmons in the Best Supporting Actor was the one. I love J.K. Simmons, but I just don't even remember him in Ricardo's. I'm like,
No.
he's fine, but I'm just like, that's surprising to me. I think out of all of them, I'm like, that's who we want to. I love J.K. Simmons, but like, I'm like, that's a performance we want. We want to like put our weight behind and go, yeah, we nominated J.K. Simmons for being the Ricardos. I'm like, he's good, but I'm like, I don't even remember him.
Awards worthy good though.
Yeah, I don't know. But best young actor and actress. So Jude Hill for Belfast, Cooper Hoffman for Licorice Pizza, Amelia Jones for Coda, Woody Norman for Come On, Come On, Sonia Sidney for King Richard, and Rachel Zegler for West Side Story. We talked a little bit about Zegler in our West Side Story review, how we talked about, Spielberg. Not necessarily, she was worked on a few things before West Side Story, but we think she's going to be an absolute kind of superstar after that movie. She's already been cast in Snow White as well as
Shazam.
Shazam too. Amelia Jones, I voted for in Best Actress, so it's nice to see her show up here. Obviously, Cooper Hoffman in Licorice Pizza makes sense, and Jude Hill is the star of Belfast as well. And even Sonia Sidney in King Richard. I didn't see Come On, Come On yet. I couldn't fit it in under the deadline, so I'm not quite sure about Woody Norman.
Woody Norman is very good, and I think what a lot of people are taking away from that performance is outside of the performance itself, which is that he's British and
Okay.
he's playing an American, and
And as a child, that's probably even harder to do.
Yeah, and he is very good in the film. Two of the three people I voted for are on
Okay,
this
keep
list.
vamping because I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be
All
right
right,
back.
all right. So Cooper Hoffman, Licorice Pizza, which next to Bo Burnham's Inside is my favorite film of the year, and we'll talk about that movie, and I think it'll be a very interesting discussion. Definitely earns a spot in this category. Amelia Jones, I also voted for Coda. I think that she is terrific in the role. I'm just looking up now who I voted for. Oh, and Liu Savud for Stillwater, which is a movie that kind of came and went after playing at Cannes, and a lot of the kind of attention was taken away from the fact that Matt Damon was playing this kind of Trumpian, like, supporter or voter, kind of going to France to help his daughter who is imprisoned, and he kind of starts a relationship with a mother and daughter and sort of becomes a new father figure to them. But I thought that the little girl's performance in that movie was really, really well done. I was just talking about Stillwater.
Oh, that's who your third choice was that didn't
Yeah,
make it in?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And then I think I already talked about it, right? I also had McKenna Grace in Ghostbusters because I did like her a lot in that movie, but I'm not surprised didn't make it in.
Although, I mean, that is a performance that is like, if like I could see her getting in. Like,
yeah, I could see it. But when I look at the other group of people who did make it in, I kind of understand.
yeah, because they're in movies that are probably going to get nominated
Yes,
for
where
other.
Ghostbusters isn't showing up anywhere, right?
No.
So people don't even think, oh, I should nominate her from that movie here. But I really liked her in that movie, so that was my third pick. Maybe I should have put her a little higher to try to push her in. But best acting ensemble: Belfast, Don't Look Up, The Harder They Fall, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. So I think the coolest thing here is The Harder They Fall making it in, because everything else is a best picture nominee. So obviously a best ensemble kind of makes sense for the rest of them. Um, I haven't watched The Harder They Fall yet.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It's
and I will watch it. Like, the one thing I will say, I tried to squeeze in as much as I could before the deadline, but we're only humans, so
well, you are only human. You
yeah.
voted for the humans.
I couldn't fit in everything, but I will watch every single movie that is nominated to make sure that I can vote in every category before we vote for the actual winners. So
Yeah. But yeah, The Harder They Fall is a very fun movie. I think the third act specifically just kills it. Like, it reminded me a lot of what Sam Raimi did with his remake of The Quick and the Dead, and how kind of kinetic and sort of energetic the movie is, and sort of how unafraid and unabashed it is to take on sort of like, all these kind of insane shots and over the top cinematography and direction, but it's doing so in the milieu of the spaghetti western specifically, and not just playing within sort of the context of the classic western. And then yeah, the cast is just
yeah,
incredible in that
is
movie.
great. Yeah.
One of my favorite performances, I think, and if he was showing up anywhere, like, I think Lakeith Stanfield has an amazing supporting
Oh
performance
yeah, I'm excited to watch it.
in it.
I
Yeah.
just I couldn't fit it in, but I did vote for the humans here because I thought maybe it's a smaller ensemble, so I didn't think that it probably would make it in. But it is an act. Like, I feel like acting is first and foremost in that movie from the whole group of that 5 people. So um, tried to, but didn't make it. Anything you voted for that didn't make it in, or what
No,
did
I think
you?
everything. Or
Yeah.
hold on. So my votes were for The Harder They Fall, Licorice Pizza, and Coda.
Okay, cool. So you helped The Harder They Fall probably get in there. That's awesome. Then we move on to Best Director. So we have PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, who says superhero movies are not ruining cinema. God bless him. Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog, Guillermo del Toro for Nightmare Alley, Steven Spielberg for West Side Story, and Dennis Villanueva for Dune. Yeah, if people don't know what we're referencing, Snoop Dogg Snoop Dogg did the nomination or announced the nominations for the Golden Globes. And they sent him out to like, basically it sounded like me trying to pronounce, people's names when we're doing something that I don't prep for at all. But if I was doing the Golden Globe nominations, not saying that, again, we don't want to talk too much about it because they're useless, but like, you should have given him how to pronounce these names. Like, I feel kind of bad for him where they just went up and he even pronounced Ben Affleck's name wrong. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, but the Dennis Villeneuve thing was funny because it was a callback to a Lights Camera Jackson thing. That was funny.
They did the co-star of the Beach Bum dirty.
Yeah.
Lingerie. I love him in that movie.
This group of people kind of all make sense. I will say that I voted for Maggie Gyllenhaal and Sharon Heater for Lost Daughter and Coda. They did not make it in, but I tried to put my weight behind that. But I did vote for Jane Campion, who did make it in.
So I voted for Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. I voted for Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. And I voted for Julia DiCarno for T10. And, all three got it.
Yeah, we wish.
T10, again, I think is just so well, like, it's such a muscular movie. And, like, for anybody who's like, oh, a woman can't direct a guy's picture or, like,
sure,
do a Cronenbergian-esque horror movie, it's right there.
Yeah, but instead I'm fine with this crop. I mean, again, as much as I don't care for Nightmare Alley, I think technically it's a, I guess, impressive movie. Same with Dune, and Branagh being it very personal for Belfast, that kind of makes sense. PTA directed the shit out of Licorice Pizza. And then Steven Spielberg, the same for West Side Story. He's a legend, and he probably deserves to be in there as well. And then Jane Campion, I think, so glad to see her in there for Power of the Dog because it's very, very well directed as well.
I would agree.
Best Original Screenplay, PTA for Licorice Pizza, Zach Balin for King Richard, Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, Adam McKay and David Sirota for Don't Look Up, and Aaron Sorkin for Being the Ricardos. I think Sorkin gets in here because it's Sorkin.
It's just name alone.
Yeah, it's literally like, hey, he is a great writer. Let's just, if we're gonna vote for this movie, let's put it here.
Should have doubled down and put him in director as well.
PTA for Licorice Pizza is awesome. The King Richard one, and I don't know.
Well, it's also interesting to think that Being the Ricardos and King Richard are original because there's even so Belfast much source material. Yeah, there's so much source material on those movies in terms of
documentaries, real life,
books, autobiographies.
But because it's not based off of one single thing, it's original, right? Like, which is interesting because, even Belfast being about, loosely based off
semi-autobiographical.
Like it is not necessarily, I guess it is, but
even Licorice Pizza. Licorice Pizza has people like John Peters, and it's anecdotal to Gary Goetzman, who's Tom Hanks's producer's own life.
Yeah.
So you would think, like, again, even though it's not based like on like something that's already
reality,
published already,
sorry,
right? Pre-existing material.
So interesting. Don't Look Up, I think if it was gonna, it's shown up in a lot of places, but
Don't Look Up is the one that did it not get nominated?
No, it did.
Oh, it did. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. I voted for I tried to get this isn't adapted. Oh yeah, I tried to get T10 in here because I feel like if T10 was going to show up anywhere, I thought it's original screenplay. It's quite original, that's for sure.
You love cars.
So I did vote for Don't Look Up and Licorice Pizza, which did make it in. What about you? Anything you tried to get in?
I voted for Licorice Pizza, which got in, and then the two that didn't get in, one which I knew wasn't going to get in, Bergman Island.
Sure.
And then the other one was The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah, I know. And when you told me that, I'm like, fuck, I should have also, maybe I was the reason it didn't get in here, which is not true because it
No.
didn't really show up anywhere else. But we will get to it in a moment, which I'm glad it showed up where it did. But yeah, that was a great choice, and I wish I kind of put it in there. Best adapted screenplay: Jane Campion for Power of the Dog, Maggie Gyllenhaal for The Lost Daughter, Sharon Heder for Coda, Tony Kushner for West Side Story, and John Spates, Dennis Villanueva, and Eric Roth for Dune. The Kushner one for West Side Story, I'm a little like, I don't know.
I'm not
Yeah?
because
There's enough that he like
changed to justify it being eligible or in contention.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It is one of those nominations though where it's like it would be the same thing with the tragedy of Macbeth if it got nominated, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're just adapting Shakespeare or you're just adapting a play, but there was
I
enough
know there's more
tweaks.
to it than that. I get that, but I'm just it's
But
not
I do
very
agree with you.
it's not very inspired.
No.
That's what I mean. Like I feel like, yeah, okay, of course it's anyways. That's the one, but I'm so glad to see Sharon Heder here.
Because
Maggie
it was based
Gyllen-
on a French film.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal for The Lost Daughter, I think is fantastic. Jane Campion for Power of the Dog, great. You know our problems with Dune, but I don't necessarily think that's with the script. But I'm fine with that making it in. But I'm glad to see those top three women make it in here.
Yeah, and two of the three of The Power of the Dog and The Lost Daughter were two of my picks. So it's nice to see those movies get nominated. And
Yep, I
again,
put Coda in The Lost Daughter, so I'm glad. I put The Humans in here, which it did not.
my third one was Passing, and
Yeah,
did not show up.
Best cinematography: Bruno Delbonnel for The Tragedy of Macbeth, Greg Fraser for Dune, Janusz Kaminski for West Side Story, Dan Lostson for Nightmare Alley, Ari Wagner for Power of the Dog, and Harris Zambarlukis for Belfast. I had Spencer in here, and West Side Story, and The Green Knight. I tried really hard to get in here, but it did not work.
I have a gripe with this category.
Yeah.
I think that Nightmare Alley is one that isn't necessarily the best looking visually. I think what helps get that nomination is the production design.
I agree with you.
And then Belfast is another one where, like, okay, yeah, it's in black and white. I mean, you can make that argument as well with Tragedy of Macbeth, because I know you weren't as big of a fan, but I get that more because of the style choices are more specific to an era of film it's referencing. And
Sure.
Belfast, to me, and Kenneth Branagh has been very kind of honest about this, like, he was very much inspired by Paolo Pawlikowski's Ida. So, like, sometimes the cinematography feels very disjointed in terms of, like, its style and what it wants to do. So, like, you'll have, like, some low... Like, there's one low-angle shot that feels very weird.
In which
to
movie,
me.
sorry?
Belfast.
Right,
So,
right.
there's a shot in Belfast where it's Jamie Dornan kind of, you know... standing up to his childhood friends that are now IRA members, and it's kind of like this low angle shot of the back of Dornan's head, and then you see like the clouds in the sky kind of moving as well, and it's such a weird stylistic choice that doesn't really fit at that point in the film of what they're doing, and like things like that really started to irritate me quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm mostly indifferent on Belfast cinematography, if I'm being completely honest, but I don't disagree with you there. And Macbeth, yeah, I mean, I didn't love the look of it, but I think that was just a style choice that I did not vibe with. I don't necessarily think that the cinematography was bad. It was just, I think it goes back to that production design thing where I just didn't like the look of it. I felt it very empty and kind of drab and dull looking, but I understand that's more of a style choice that I think works even if I didn't like it, and that should maybe be kind of celebrated rather than and I mean Greg Fraser for Dune makes sense, Kaminsky for West Side Story makes sense. as much as I didn't like Dune. Obviously that IMAX cinematography and stuff is mesmerizing. And the Nightmare Alley thing, I agree with you. That's, I think, because of the production design of the movie and the lighting, and again, when you're talking about style, like I think Macbeth nails the style it's going for, even if I did not like the style or it didn't work for me. I think Nightmare Alley is trying to have that noir vibe to it, but I don't think it really nails that noir look. Like personally,
And I don't think
um,
Dan Laustin's cinematography is, it just doesn't work for me with Guillermo del Toro's sensibilities. I love The
yeah,
Shape of Water, but the one of the
yeah,
things that I didn't really like is this kind of like Amelie
hmm,
esque kind of bright but slick color palette that
yeah,
it just
almost,
doesn't
yeah,
mesh with what Guillermo del Toro has done in the past. Like I liked it when he was kind of working in like earthy tones,
yeah.
and I feel that there's a little
Um,
bit lost there.
Yeah. And then Ari Wegner for Power of the Dog. That's a gorgeous looking movie. So
Yeah.
makes sense. Production design, which we were just talking
What
about.
did you pick for
Uh,
your
I had Spencer, West Side Story, and Green Knight.
nice?
Um,
I had Green Knight, Power of the Dog, and Spencer.
okay, so we basically were the same. I just swapped West Side Story for whatever the difference was
But I will
there.
say with Spencer, like Claire Mathon's cinematography is so beautiful, and she's one of those, again, one of those cinematographers that's been working with people like Celine Sciamma. She shot Portrait of a Lady on Fire as well, and like to see her work with Pablo Larraín here is like, it doesn't feel repetitive to what Portrait of a Lady on Fire is, but there is
Mhm,
a connection there that comes out beautifully and complements what Lorraine is doing with this kind of fable historical fiction narrative.
for sure. Now we go to production design. We have Belfast, Nightmare Alley, The French Dispatch, West Side Story, and Dune. Um, most of these completely make sense to me. Um,
Right.
I voted for West Side Story, The Green Knight, and Licorice Pizza. So 2 out of 3 of my picks did not make it in. But I do understand why all of these
You
movies made it
do
in.
understand why.
Yeah. Again, even with Dune, I'm a little, because again, similar problem I had with Tragedy of Macbeth, where I get that Arrakis is, a sand planet and it's pretty empty and things like
It's
that, but
rough, it's
like
coarse, and
it
it
gets
gets in
everywhere.
everywhere.
Um, and I think it's, again, I think the cinematography in Dune, with the IMAX footage especially, kind of tricks people into thinking it's more impressive than it is. Um, where the production design, and I get that that's from the books, and I don't know, I just want to translate to screen. I'm like, there's a lot of brown, there's like 3 buildings, and like it's just a lot of emptiness to me, where I'm just like, I get it, but I also don't.
Well, it's also a
um
default nominee for a lot of people as well. Like
yeah,
it's almost one of those things where it's like, okay, well, if I can't think of anything,
well, that movie
um
was impressive looking, so
yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, well, if I can't figure out, like, oh, if I haven't seen all the blockbuster movies that are out, I'll throw in Dune, or I'll throw in one of the bigger films that is
yeah,
going for Best Picture. So it's almost like, it gets in no matter what, because some people won't be looking at like all, the potential nominees, or even nominees that aren't going to make it past um critics groups. So
yeah. um Adam Stockhausen and Rita Deangelo got a double nomination because they were the production designers both on French Dispatch and West Side Story. So that's awesome for them. Um, but I would have liked, I thought, Licorice Pizza nailed its time period, which I would have loved to see it get in, as well as I also had Green Knight, which I think is, just I think in some of those technical categories, I would have liked to see it show up, but
it's
unfortunately
too
not.
weird, and
Yeah,
it's again, it's like T10, where it's going to have a small core group of fans really
behind it.
championing it, and,
Yeah,
and wanting to get into categories, but when it comes to a bigger awards body, it'll get diluted, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, two of
What did you
mine
have? Yeah.
got in, which was The Power of the Dog and West Side Story.
Power of the Dog did not
It
get it in.
didn't?
No,
What the
no.
fuck?
No, it didn't. So
Oh my
only West
god.
Side Story did. Yeah.
Wow.
So what
Okay.
was your other one?
My other one was The Souvenir Part 2.
Right.
And The
Right.
Souvenir Part 2, narratively, it's basically about this person who's putting her life together while she's in film school after losing a loved one, and how, you know, she's now making this movie that kind of reflects how she's feeling, and they're building sets in shooting in this soundstage. And
Do you
like
think that suffered from the problem like basically what I had where I didn't see the first one, so I
sure,
felt scared, not scared, but I was like, "Oh, I gotta watch both of them, or I can't just jump into part two,
a little bit,
obviously." And then
yeah.
like,
I mean, like I could see that even happening with Dune Part 2 in a weird way, or maybe like the opposite, where it's like we nominated Dune for everything, and like
yeah,
when Dune 2 comes out, it's like, okay, well, we gave it what we
yeah. It's
thought it
just it's
deserved.
part two of the same movie,
Yeah.
so
And The Souvenirs kind of like that as well, where I think
I do want to watch both part one and part two. I
the
just haven't.
first movie had more acclaim behind it when it was released, and then part two, even though it did also play at Cannes outside of the main competition, A24 just kind of dropped it, and it's just
Yeah, it
it's like
feels like
one of,
it kind of came and went.
but it's so good. Like it's one of those movies again, like Bergman Island, that plays with the meta narrative, and how it also reflects Joanna Hogg, who's the writer director, her own career and her own kind of contribution to cinema, and like where she started, and watching that movie unfold. She nails the last 20 minutes of that movie are
Yeah,
perfect.
cool.
Perfect.
Cool. Editing. We have West Side Story, Belfast, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, and Dune. For me here, I had Tick Tick Boom and Lost Daughter in here, as well as West Side Story. So one of my picks made it in, but Tick Tick Boom and The Lost Daughter did not.
uh so I'm in the same category as you, Matt. My one and only that got in for editing was West Side Story. Because I do feel that even though the movie is almost 3 hours long, it moves at a really decent pace, and it kind of feels in tune and in rhythm with the performances and the music. And for that, I think it does deserve the nomination. The other two movies that I nominated were long shots at best.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Red Rocket's editing and what Sean Baker does with some of the punchlines and how he cuts
Yeah,
is
that's an
incredible.
inspired choice. I like that. Yeah.
And then also for Petite Maman, which
Yeah.
I think has one of the best edits, transitions
I agree with that as
in
well.
film
This was
this
one of
year.
those ones where I love both of those choices, but it was one of those ones that I was like, okay, I thought maybe Tick Tick Boom and Lost Daughter had a shot, but I think those are phenomenal choices, and both of those movies, it's unfortunate they didn't show up anywhere.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
partly because Petite Maman, even though it doesn't get released until next year in North America in 2022. It does qualify for this year in terms of
because of its
awards.
foreign release, right?
Yeah,
Or
and
it's
so and it's also got like a 1 week release in New York, I think in Brooklyn or outside of Brooklyn. Um, so I think that maybe also kind of confused people as well, and Neon put more
I will
attention into
admit
T10.
I will admit I totally forgot about Petite Maman. Like that was the one fumble I had while voting, because like after I submitted my votes, we were talking and we didn't talk about what we were going to vote until after. Um and I was like, fuck, I forgot about Petite Maman. Just completely forgot about it. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year, but I was referencing like my letterbox and other things of like my rankings of the year and different things like that. And because of Petite Maman's release being technically next year in North America, I don't have it on my best of the year this year. So then I just forgot about it. And anyways, but
And that's what
I'm
happened with Portrait of a Lady on Fire too.
yeah, that's true. Best costume design, Cruella, Nightmare Alley, West Side Story, Dune, and House of Gucci. I had Spencer, West Side Story and Cruella. So 2 out of 3 of my picks. But I know the costumes in Spencer were based on, I think, real outfits we knew Princess Di wore and stuff like that. But
Well,
I
that
thought they
OPP
were,
hat, right?
yeah. It was great, but I thought the costumes were gorgeous in Spencer. And there were so many different, I thought that was actually part of the narrative as well. Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of wanted to put my weight behind that. But, Cruella, obviously I voted for that. West Side Story, Nightmare Alley doesn't surprise me that it showed up. House of Gucci, obviously being about, fashion, kind
But
of
it's
makes
not
sense
that,
as well.
like, I get Spencer and what you're talking about, like the interwoven sort of,
Sure.
narrative with the costumes in the same way that like Phantom Thread is, right?
Yeah.
Where House of Gucci, like it should be, but those outfits do not stand out at all.
I don't know. I think they're, I guess, a little over the top, which is why they probably stand out to a lot of people. So I guess I sort of see that. I don't necessarily agree, but
Right.
and then Dune is one where I just
Well, it's the suits, right? Like
I get
I
it,
think a big
but
thing is that the one suit where it's like it takes all your sweat and you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and there are all the different houses have a different look and basically outfits and stuff like that. So I definitely understand it. I just, again, it goes back to that whole movie just feeling a lot of brown and grays and blacks where I'm just like, I don't find it that interesting looking. What did you have in this category?
So I had the Green Knight. I
Love that
had The
choice.
Power
Yeah.
of the Dog and Spencer.
Okay. So none of your choices made it in.
No, which is weird that Spencer didn't make it in.
I think it's weird, but
yeah, but the Green Knight is one where it's like I feel like, again, it's a weird choice, but there's a piece of clothing specifically that is so integral to the third act
yeah.
that really kind of. But I think all the costumes in it are amazing.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Best hair and makeup, we got Cruella, Dune, Eyes of Tammy Faye, House of Gucci, and Nightmare Alley. I think I voted for House of Gucci, Cruella, and the Suicide Squad because
Nice.
I wanted that to get in there just to kind of continue the trend of the Suicide Squad winning or getting nominated for hair and makeup awards, even though that was the Oscars. I don't know
It
what the
didn't have
critics'
Jared
choice.
Leto in it. That's why I didn't.
Yeah, fair. And then what about you? Your 3?
My 3 for best hair and makeup are T10, The Green Knight, and Malignant.
So none made it in. I love those. Those are very inspired choices. I love
And
them.
I think that they're all worthy of being
absolutely.
nominated.
But they're 3 movies that, just are a little too weird and a little too small, probably.
Shout out to my main man, Gabriel.
Yeah,
Love you, dog.
Yeah, I forgot that the best sci-fi action movie or whatever it was isn't on the award show anymore because there's the whole Super Awards, right?
Yeah.
So that's a separate thing. So I hope Malignant's time to shine is the Super Awards.
Gabriel for best actor.
But the Cruella makes total sense. Dune makes sense, I think, more for makeup than it does costumes. Eyes of Tammy Faye, a lot of fake noses and different things in that movie. House of Gucci, again, I think Jared Leto's fat suit alone. And Nightmare Alley. Nightmare Alley as well. The costumes and the makeup and the hair for that style of movie really makes sense. So best visual effects, Dune, The Matrix Resurrections, Nightmare Alley, No Time to Die, and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I had in this category Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I had The Suicide Squad, and I had Dune. So 2 out of 3 for me made it in. What about you?
I had The Green Knight, The Suicide Squad, and Finch.
Okay, so none of yours made it in again. I love that you're trying, though.
I know,
I love it.
But you know what?
You got it.
Like 2 of those, I actually thought had a shot.
Dude, I'm not
Starro.
Yeah,
that is an amazing.
I voted for
effect.
it as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was with you.
And Finch made me like Caleb Landry Jones.
That's cool. I do want to watch Finch. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet. So maybe I'm part of the problem there. But the one surprising thing here for me is Matrix Resurrections, because I
Yes.
didn't think enough people saw it. I know it has screened because I've seen it pop up on some people's letterboxd. Neither you or I had
Not yet.
access to
We
it
will be
yet.
seeing it soon, though.
Yeah. I know the premiere's in a couple days. Are you going to that?
No.
Oh, okay. I know it's on the 16th, I think. But
Whoosha.
I know it's on our digital for your consideration thing. It just hasn't popped in yet. So I hadn't seen it. So I guess enough people from our group have seen it. So cool. Dune, again, I think obviously the effects are pretty impressive in that movie. Nightmare Alley, trying to think like visual effects, like I guess it's not always just CG, because there are some cool fire effects and different
Well,
things.
also
And
like
like,
maybe
I bet,
augmentation of certain prosthetics,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, totally. Um, cool to see No Time to Die show up here.
Oh,
Didn't
and
feel it.
the Rooney Mara's sort of attraction,
Right, the
the
lightning and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah. And then Shang-Chi, cool for it to see it show up. Best comedy. You have Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. Love that it showed up here. That's fantastic. Don't Look Up, kind of makes sense. Free Guy, okay. The French Dispatch and Licorice Pizza. So interesting to see. French Dispatch didn't really show up other than production design.
Which that makes perfect
Gets
sense.
for production design. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it made it in here, but also not surprised. Free Guy is the one where I guess a lot of people did like that movie, but I know
The
that
ultimate pass film.
yeah, like I remember being very whatever on
It's
it.
fine, but it's like, is it an awards film?
No, like I think there's more inspired choices like Red Rocket and Mitchell's versus the Machines, which I
Yeah.
had voted for both of those. I did vote for Don't Look Up because again, I really do like that movie and I think its blunt comedy really works for me and I think is very funny. And it got a Best Picture nomination, so it doesn't surprise me that it also gets a Best Comedy nomination. So I think Barb and Star is a very inspired and fun choice for this. What did you vote for your three?
I voted for Licorice Pizza, Red Rocket, and Shiva Baby.
Yeah, I would have loved Shiva Baby to show up here because it didn't show up anywhere else either. Although I didn't vote for it, I probably should have voted for that instead of Don't Look Up. But yeah, Mitchell's versus the Machines and Red Rocket were the two where I'm like, if they're going to show up somewhere, I hope they show up here. Even though I knew Mitchell's
I
had a
wish I
shot for
voted for
animated.
I would have voted for the Mitchells and the Machines. I just was thinking, like, when I was thinking outside the box, like, okay, I put it in original screenplay, so that's like
Right,
me, like,
trying to push it in another category.
yeah.
So yeah, the Free Guy just doesn't feel like super inspired to
No.
me. Like
Again, it's
it,
almost a default,
like what
pick.
comedies came out this year?
What
And,
Ryan
like,
Reynolds comedy can we vote for? Because they went hard on Deadpool the year that it came out. So,
which
you're
makes
going
more.
really blue.
Yeah, that was what happened there. Is it just blue in general, or
Well,
is
now
it?
it's not. But I think
No,
I
I
think it was
think
almost like focus
probably focused on my
on
blue
your
sweater
yeah.
and then like just made my whole face blue.
Are you trying to, like, do some advertising for Avatar 2 already,
Yeah,
man?
yeah, it'll show up next year probably, if it comes out. So yeah, but Barb and Star making it in is awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
That is the most interesting pick of those nominees.
Yeah. Best animated feature, you have Encanto, Flea, Luca, Mitchell's versus the Machines, and Raya and the Last Dragoon. Three Disney picks here. It always happens. Love to see Flea show up here. Because it didn't, well, it showed up at the documentary awards, right?
Yeah.
So again, it confused me my first year. I forgot that there's no best documentary category anymore because they have a whole separate awards for it. So it is good to see Flea show up in Best Animated Feature. And then because of the travesty this morning with the Golden Globes not nominating Mitchell's versus the Machines, we correct it by nominating it for Best Animated Feature because that is obscene.
But then
That
we
it
broke even for nominating Jared Leto for House of Gucci.
fair. But super happy to see Mitchell's versus the Machines here. I'm worried that it might not win based on it being forgotten about in other places, but I do think it is easily the best animated movie of the year. Flea always throws me off because, again, very, very, very different movies. And I know that Flea might end up taking this, or a Disney movie will just win like it always does.
I hope it doesn't. I mean, like, nothing against Disney. I get why they're like, their bread and butter is animated movies first and foremost. But it's a default kind of pick for a lot of
So I hope Flea or
nominations.
Mitchell's makes it in here.
I mean, my three were Flea, The Mitchells versus the Machines, and then my third pick was Belle, which is this Japanese
I do want to watch
anime movie, which is really, really beautiful and
again,
well
I
done.
just
It's
don't
a
think
little
enough people
long.
saw it, probably, right?
No, but it did play Cannes, and then it played New York, and then it started they started doing screeners for it, and you could request a screener link as well. And it is a very beautiful, vivid looking movie, in terms of its animation style, and its storyline is familiar because it's sort of taking Beauty and the Beast and kind of running with that, but within the world of this online app and sort of how that kind of all plays out. And it's, again, one of those movies where it's like, you'd think that, G Kids, who's releasing it in North America, and they actually just announced the English language cast.
Oh, did they?
And it's not coming out until next year. Like, I think it's January of 2022 where it's getting its theatrical release. But it's just something different, and it's just something really unique looking. And it's also kind of funny because the director also co-directed Digimon the movie.
No,
and
really?
There's a sequence in Belle that is very much like the sequence that takes place in cyberspace in
because you recently watched that, didn't you?
Yeah. And when I was watching it, I was like, why is this so much like Digimon?
And then you looked it up and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. God, no. Incredible. The one that I voted for that didn't make it in was Paw Patrol, the movie. So I thought Paw Patrol was fun.
Totally fine.
Best foreign language film, we have A Hero, Drive My Car, Flea, The Hand of God, and The Worst Person in the World. My three were The Worst Person in the World, T10, and Flea. So 2 out of my 3 made it in, but T10...
all neon movies, too.
Yeah, I was neon heavy on the best foreign language film. I had themes in certain categories, which you'll see with best score and then best director. I wanted to vote it for 3 women. In this, I didn't subconsciously voted for 3 neon movies, and then consciously in best score, I just went full Greenwood, baby. But yeah, what did you have for best foreign language?
Well, Matt, I also went full on neon for this one as well. Petite Maman,
right.
T10, and Flea.
And I would have voted for Petite Maman if I wasn't a moron and forgot that it was eligible this year.
Petite moron?
Yeah, I was a petite moron. That is absolutely correct. I'm cool with this crop, but T10 and Petite Maman, I would have loved to see make it in, but I don't know what you would push out. Like The Hand of God is flashier, and being a Netflix movie maybe either helps it or they pushed it harder than maybe some of these other movies. I haven't seen Drive My Car yet or Hand of God. And did you watch Worst Person in the World yet?
No, I haven't. So I'm going to be watching that.
Yeah. And I'll be watching Hand of God and Drive My Car for this. So, yeah, interesting crop, but best international, best foreign language is always interesting, right? Because I feel like there are always some snubs where you're like, man, did not enough people see them, or they just kind of went under the radar, or
well, it also sucks with the Oscars specifically, where it's only one film is allowed to represent the country, and when you have multiple movies that are worthy, because I have 2 films from France on my list with both T10 and Petite Maman, but I think both movies are worthwhile and they're both eligible here. But when it comes to the Oscars, it's a selection process where it's like only one movie can represent a whole country,
which is a bit silly. But
yeah.
Best song, we have Be Alive from King Richard. I'm so bad. Dos Oruguitas. That's horrible. I'm terrible. Encanto. Yeah, make fun of me. Guns Go Bang from The Harder They Fall. Just Look Up from Don't Look Up, and No Time to Die from No Time to Die. Best song is always kind of just again, I went I'm kind of hypocritical here because I voted for a movie. My usual rule is if a song doesn't show up actually in the movie, if it's just a credit song, you probably shouldn't. It shouldn't be eligible or it shouldn't be voted for. But I thought "Measure of a Man" from The Kingsman, which I just watched, was a banger, and I liked it. Just again, similar to a Bond themey kind of thing.
But
And I
only plays in
also
the end credits.
yeah, it only plays in the end credits. Where if it was an opening credit song, if they would have just went full, okay, we're a spy movie, let's have a spy movie opening. But I voted for it anyway because I really liked it and I've been listening to it a lot. But then I also voted for No Time to Die and Just Look Up. So those are my three. What about you?
I voted for No Time to Die. I voted for Beyond the Shore, which is from Coda.
Yeah,
And then I voted for So May We Start from Annette.
cool.
I didn't like Annette, but I do like that song.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And the song from Coda, I think, is an inspired choice as well.
And again, it's in the narrative.
I agree with that. I went on I literally was hypocritical because I'm usually in the same boat where it can be the opening credits, but that's part of the movie to me. And I guess the closing credits are part of the movie, but usually you just go to a black screen, right? Like if it's a stylized credit, like a lot of the Marvel ones go at the end of the movie instead of at the beginning, and there's still a stylized credit sequence. But I will say that Measure of a Man is literally cut to black credits and then it's the credit song. So is that really an original song for the movie? It is, but it's not really part of the movie, but it is part of the movie. But anyways, I thought I really liked that song. So but I think that we got The Kingsman literally like the day before voting, so I assumed most people hadn't watched it. But again, these best song categories are always, I would have liked, but Barb and Star was eligible for this year or last year? It's this year because it got nominated, right?
Well, this year in I guess critics groups,
yeah.
but in terms of the Oscars, it was eligible last year because they submitted Edgar's Prayer last year. Because I would have voted for that otherwise. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, agreed. And then finally, best score. You have Nicholas Britell for Don't Look Up, Johnny Greenwood for Power of the Dog, Johnny Greenwood for Spencer, Nathan Johnson for Nightmare Alley, and Hans Zimmer for Dune. I voted for The Power of the Dog, Spencer, and Licorice Pizza. All of them Johnny Greenwood.
All wood. Knock on wood, baby. Well, Matt, I'm 2/3 of the way there with you. I voted for Spencer, The Power of the Dog, and The Green Knight.
The Green Knight, yeah. You really tried. You tried your damnedest with The Green Knight, and I love you for it. But
Hey, man,
unfortunately,
it's a
did
good
not
movie.
work. No, I agree with you. I like it a lot. It's a fantastic movie. But Britell for Don't Look Up is interesting to me because even watching that movie, and I really really liked it. I was trying to remember the score or bits and pieces from the score, and I'm like, I don't even recall much of the score, to be honest.
And usually his stuff stands out.
Yeah, I mean, the Succession finale was last night, and Britell is a great composer. I just don't remember. Like, I'm gonna have to go listen to it on iTunes or whatever after Apple Music after this, because I just don't remember. Obviously, both Greenwood scores for Power of the Dog and Spencer are phenomenal. Even him and Licorice Pizza was me just kind of going, why not give him 3 nominations? I think that could be fun. But I don't. There's more licensed music in Licorice Pizza than there is Greenwood's score. I think
it's more of a curated soundtrack than it
and
is,
he only has a couple pieces of music, I think, in the movie, even though he's technically the official composer of the movie. Nightmare Alley, sure, I don't remember much of its score as well. And then Hans Zimmer obviously went off with Dune, so I totally understand that. Like, I think the most memorable thing from Dune, and I think doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the cinematography, was Hans Zimmer's score. So I think when you have that bombastic score that Zimmer does for that movie with that IMAX cinematography, it really is like hammers home that this movie is good, even though I don't necessarily think it is.
Well, also incorporating sort of world music as well, right?
Yeah.
Like from all parts
The
of
bagpipes.
the world. Yeah, that was the reason it got in. But like even having sort of like the women's voices, you know.
Oh yeah,
things
the
like that.
choir, not necessarily a choir, but yeah, that kind of, it's sort of a choir.
It's probably his most experimental sort of piece.
I think it's a great score. It's
It
my
is
favorite
very
part of the movie.
bombastic still, and to your point, I think one of the things that is usually a saving grace for any movie, even if it's good or bad, is his score. I love Interstellar, but the first time I saw it, I wasn't as high on it. But the thing I really liked about it was his
Was Zimmer's
score.
score, right?
Yeah,
And I think his score for No Time to Die was really good as well. But uh, a lot of good music this year. But
just remember when we saw him in concert.
that was awesome. That was fun. We saw him and John Carpenter in the same year, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Which was a blast. Um, that is the Critics' Choice Awards, and that'll pretty much be our episode for today. I'm excited to, watch I think the majority of the nominees I have seen at this point, but there are a few that squeaked through that I did not see. So I am looking forward to, finishing up and watching the movies that I haven't seen. But all of the Best Picture nominees I've seen, mostly all of the acting nominees I've seen. I think the only one I haven't is Dinklage. The rest of them I have, and then some of the technical stuff. I think after seeing all this, I'm like, oh, I did my homework. I pretty much saw everything that got nominated.
Well, you're also watching movies throughout the entire year,
Yeah.
right? So, we started this year with Sundance as well. So we saw some stuff there like Coda and Passing and other movies that, even though some of them weren't nominated, but are still very much in the awards conversation. So you've been keeping on it throughout the year. And even though, yeah, we might have not seen a few that have been nominated, I still think that we've seen more than the majority of some awards bodies, because some people do wait until
The
the
nominations.
nominations or until screeners come in, and sometimes it's like it's a pick and choose kind of thing in terms of what they review during the whole year, where I think we get a wide swath of
Yeah, we
reviews. I
cover
mean,
them
look at
all
all, we
year,
have
and
300 plus reviews.
oh yeah, just on this channel. Okay, quickly before we wrap things up, do you want to go over the couple trailers and then just finish up the show?
Sure.
Um,
I mean, I don't even know if
I
I watched them, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. No worries. If you didn't, but I will mention Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which premiered at the Game Awards, and my boy Knuckles is in there. Again, I think the movie looks fun. I think they're going full. They're just embracing it, and it just looks like a fun kids movie, and which I kind of think the first movie was. And full Robotnik for Jim Carrey. You have Idris Elba as Knuckles, and I cannot underestimate how much I was obsessed with Knuckles as a kid. So that excites me as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. um but again, looks like silly fun. You didn't see the trailer yet,
No,
Eric?
I didn't.
No.
I
It's
want to
more
save that experience for the
for the
theater,
theater. Yeah,
the
I
way it was
get.
meant to be seen.
We also got a trailer for I thought there was something else that we missed out on. I think that was probably the only thing. And then this morning we got a Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Didn't even watch that.
No, I'll just quick impressions. I like Mads Mikkelsen more than Johnny Depp, obviously.
Less
Um,
problematic for sure.
for sure. Still looks like a Fantastic Beast movie, and I love the Wizarding World. Like, I think Nevis and I are going to do another Harry Potter rewatch over the holiday. She's been itching to do one, so I think we will do that. I want them to get these movies over with so we can get to the Cursed Child, and I feel like they're going to announce that soon. Like, there's this whole Harry Potter, isn't it 20th anniversary special that's going up
On HBO Max.
on HBO Max on New Year's Day. I wouldn't be surprised if we probably know about it by now, but I feel like Cursed Child might get brought up there. And I don't know if the cast is old enough. They might have to wait another 5 or 10 years before they do that. But you gotta assume after they're done Fantastic Beasts, like they're going to do Cursed Child. So
How many more of these
um
are left? There's supposed to be 5 in total for the Fantastic Beasts movies. 'Cause
I
that's what
hope I hope
I
we're
think
done
that's
with
how
them
the.
soon. I hope it's 4.
I think it's 5.
um
What's even
which
worse is J.K. Rowling is also
Even yeah, she's
not great.
terrible. That's why I don't even mention her. I think it's fine to again, it's a lot of the same stuff with video games of having problematic people and companies. It's just like there are a lot of other people that work on these
Involved.
things that aren't JK Rowling, and So I just try to just fucking ignore her, and just like, as much as I don't think these movies are great, the Fantastic Beasts ones, but um I do think that there's so much of that world to explore, and I think you can have some fun stuff from that universe. And it's unfortunate who made it, but I think, she's was more involved before than she is now. But I don't know, the movie looks whatever. Like, again, I thought the second one was terrible. I thought the first one was fine. um I'll still obviously watch this, but I'm just kind of indifferent on it. And I just really want a Cursed Child movie, which I know we'll get. But it's just when we'll get that. I think, like, even when Fantastic Beasts was first announced, I basically was like, this is literally them going, okay, we got to wait 15 years before we can do Cursed Child. So why don't we make 5 of these movies? Because we'll do them every 2 or 3 years, and it'll just kill time until we can do Cursed Child. And then that will
While also
probably,
keeping interest, right? Like,
yeah, because you need people to still be interested in the wizarding world. So the further you get along, the more intertwined it gets with, the actual world of Harry Potter, with Dumbledore and the characters that we know. And then I think that will lead into doing Cursed Child, and then Cursed Child might span, another, sequel series of Harry Potter movies or HBO Max show or something like that. But we shall see. And then news wise, I don't think we really, I don't know if there's anything. We did a show pretty recently, so I think we can keep it pretty Critics' Choice centric. Unless you have anything that popped out.
nope,
Nope.
nothing at all.
Cool, man. Well, thank you all for listening. Like I mentioned, we have a ton of kind of content coming out over the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out on Untitled movie reviews for Don't Look Up, Benedetta, Spider-Man Far From Home, The Kingsman, The Lost Daughter, Nightmare Alley, Red Rocket, Being the Ricardos, Licorice Pizza, Tragedy of Macbeth, Matrix Resurrections, Tender Bar, Serrano Peppers, the 355.
Cobra Kai.
So Cobra Kai, there's so much coming, and even reading that out, I'm like exhausted because we haven't recorded any of that yet. So we're pretty busy boys over the next couple of weeks. So Untitled movie reviews, check out all of that. We might also have some stuff coming up on Untitled movie conversations. There will be a Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler cast that will probably pop up there. That'll probably be your last conversation of the year. But and then you'll also have Untitled Movie Podcast 109 and 110 to wrap up kind of this year. One of them will be
to next year.
Yeah, and our best movies of this year, which you probably already kind of have an idea of. But I think that'll probably be one episode. We love putting together our most anticipated of the next year, and we'll probably rank how it worked out this year for us. So that should
be interesting.
That'll be fun. So thank you all for listening. We really, really do appreciate it. If you want a one-stop shop for everything, just head over to our letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies. That's probably your best spot for everything. As always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric March, and you can find more of my video reviews at rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Denny Villanueva.